this album obviously is one of the most controversial albums when it comes to this band and this in rock and roll history in general, because of what this band was for the first 15 years of existence, and then they released 5 albums before that, and then what they came up with this and their style and all that. So there's a lot of backstory to this for me also personally, because this is the year I also became a fan of the band, 1996. I became a Metallica fan in 1996. Now, I didn't become a fan because of Load, because I became a fan of Metallica before Load was even released. So, like I said, Load was released June 4th, 1996. I became a fan of Metallica around February, March of 96. And I was told a story in the past, maybe one time, a long time ago. The song that got me to Metallica was The Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen is actually the second track off their debut album of Kill 'Em All. Obviously, Kill 'Em All, very thrashy, much different sound than Load, of course, much heavier. And, they, for years leading up to Load, had already teased signs of becoming more, not just mainstream, but also having the ability to be different, not just have a one-track sound, a thrashy sound. Ride Lightning had Fade to Black. Master Puppets had Sanitarium. Justice for All was heavy all the way throughout. And then, of course, the first major change for Metallica, and of course it ended up being the biggest, to this day, their most biggest commercial success, is the Black Album, 1991 Black Album. And that album took them to the stratosphere, being the biggest band in the world. Not just metal band, but band in general. They were everywhere. And Enter Sandman's on that record, obviously. So, and even someone at 11 years old when I came out, and I wasn't a Metallica fan back then, I knew who they were at that point. You go to school, you still have kids wearing T-shirts and stuff, so you definitely knew who Metallica was. And I knew, I obviously heard Enter Sandman and a couple of the big songs. But it's funny, because 96, I become a fan, and the Metallica I know is what I learned the first 5 albums. Because even when they went mainstream, they still see the Black, and that's the thing with the Metallica and the Black Album. So even when they went mainstream on that album, they still kept the sound. They still had the metal roots were still on that record. Yeah, it sounded more straightforward, and Hetfield definitely they put more emphasis on James Hetfield's vocals to sing more. And that's obviously Bob Rock's influence. Okay, that's obviously the case, but you can still call the Black Album a metal record, honestly. At the very least, a hard rock record, but definitely a metal. I was still call it a metal album, honestly. There's still an attitude. Or in all black. The cover of the album was just an all black sheet with the snake in the corner. That's all it was. It was still heavy, And then Load comes out, and this is where it's confusing for me, because, again, my exposure to Metallica when I became a fan in 96 was the first 5 records. So I'm expecting long hair, something like the Black Album, heavy, maybe straightforward, but still heavy. And then I see Metallica, release the Until It Sleeps video in April, May of 96. And they all have short hair. All 4 guys, James, Lars, Kirk, and Jason, all have short hair. Then I see the Load album comes out. I get the album the week it comes out at a Circuit City in Miami. Rest in peace, Circuit City. And I see, I look at the booklets, and this is back when the CDs were still really big, and, they had the big booklets, the 15, 16 page booklet. And here's these guys. And by the way, awesome pictures, artistically speaking. But you have these guys with short hair, Lars and James. Well, actually, all of them at some point or another wearing makeup to some degree. What was it? Smoking Cuban cigars, and it was definitely it was shocked for me. I was just shocked to people who followed the band for years, but for me it was weird, because it's like, okay, so the Metallica I know that I'm getting into is long haired and attitude and just dressed down, all black and sneakers and fucking pounding metal. And then I see the Metallica I'm getting here in 1996. So the Load comes out, and this is a more clean cut, hard rock, almost alternative. There's a country song on the record, but it still had attitude. But it was shocking for me at the time, but I love the songs still. I still like the songs. Like, for a lot of people, it's like, well, how can you like this album? It's not the old Metallica, but yet it still grabbed me. And I think also, musically speaking too, I'm a lot more diverse when it comes to that. Like, my exposure to rock music, especially, the bands I got into before Metallica in the mid-90s, I got into Green Day first, then I got into Rage Against the Machine before Metallica. In fact, to be honest with you, and this shouldn't surprise anybody here when you think, but you know who I am, the artist that really exposed me to rock music to begin with was Michael Jackson. Because he had Slash on his records. He had Slash on like three of his last 3 albums. He's had Stevie Stevens, he had Eddie Van Halen. He's always dabbled in with rock and roll too, rock and roll figures too as well on his records, inclusive. So Michael gets the credit for more than anything else for exposing me to rock music to begin with. So it goes from Michael to Green Day. And one name for Green Day, I was into like a little bit alternative in the early 90s, Spin Doctors and the Cranberries and things of that nature, Blind Melon. And then I get a little bit heavier and heavier and heavier, go to Green Day when Dookie comes out. Then I listen to the self-titled Rage Against the Machine record. And then Metallica. And once I got to Metallica, it was all over. But Load, for me, Load is actually my second favorite Metallica album. And I know it shocks a lot of people when I say that, especially diehards, because you think they think even if I listen to a mainstream Metallica record, I probably get into like maybe the Black Album first before that, or maybe Reload or something. No, I think Load is so underrated. I honestly think Load ages well as the years goes on. 25 years later, it ages well. They're really good songs in there. Like, there's some songs that are kind of filler. Like the song like Cure, for example, is a kind of filler song. Waste My Hate's kind of a filler song, so I like it, but it's kind of a filler song, But the album still has if you look past the haircuts and the sound changes a little bit, there's still a lot of attitude in that record, and some of the most underrated Metallica songs in the history of their entire catalog are on that record. Bleeding Me is a fantastic song. The vocals of James, and look, I never viewed James Hetfield as a phenomenal vocalist. I think he's unique in what he does, and it fits Metallica. But I never viewed him as a top tier, top notch vocalist. But the vocals on this record, like obviously the Black Album, you saw that like there was definitely a focus on his vocals, and he did a good job with that one. I think even more so in the Black Album, this record put even more focus on James Hetfield, and it allowed James Hetfield to actually be even more open with the things he wanted to do. Again, James Hetfield has loves country music. He did a country song, Mama Said. A couple of songs in there where you have some of the blues influences there too in there. Some of the guitar work on this record is amazing too. Again, it gets shit on because it's Metallica sold out and they cut their hair and all this and all that. I don't see it that way, man. I see it as a band, 6th album, 15 years in the game. Let's grow. Let's try new things. And that's the thing with Metallica I always respected, is that they have no qualms in trying new things. They did it with Saint Anger too. And the thing is, people want heavy Metallica. Saint Anger is arguably one of the most heaviest records they've ever done. But the production is just fucking shitty. That's a big difference. So pick what you want, fans. You want heavy Metallica? You got heavy Metallica. But you like Saint Anger because of the sound. Which I agree, the sound, the drums sound like fucking Folgers cans. But yeah, I love it. I love Load. I listened to it today. Ate my bitch. Fucking out the gate. Muscle. 2x4 is my favorites on the record. My favorite song on the record is actually The House that Jack Built, Jack 3. I love the vibe, and I love the snarly Hetfield vocals. I think that's one reason why I love this record is that the vocals on this album, James, this is the first record. People say the Black Album, but I think this album is where James took a lot of chances. Like, really taking his voice and really putting a signature. The wow and the yeah and all that. Yes, you got that in the Black Album, but I think you got that on fucking steroids on Load. And that's why I love Load so much, too. Because it really got the Hetfield character vocally was really, really formed